So we talk about a lot of gear, guns, cleaning, reloading, powders, bullets. But do you take time to really improve how you approach a match, how you shoot? And I would challenge you that if you don't, you really should. And reading obviously is one of the best ways. Now I watch a ton of YouTube and I watch a lot of videos. But I do find that for the most part, they fall short on really what I find beneficial, which is things that are directly related to my sport, right in F class, F open, long range, and a lot of videos. It's a lot of PRS stuff, and there's certainly a lot of things that kind of are interchangeable. But I really like when I can, obviously when I can feel like the author or the points of view really match sort of what I'm looking to do. So I thought I would point out a book that a lot of people have been waiting a long time for. It's been printed before. It went out of its last production somewhere between 18 and 24 months ago, so almost 2 years ago. They've been revising it, and it keeps threatening to come out. And myself and a bunch of my buddies have all had these books on order for anywhere from several months up to 16 to 17 months for one of my buddies. And it's the Wind book for rifle shooters. Now the old one used to be, I think it was just a cover of a range with a flag, a wind flag in the middle or something like that. Anyway, this is a really great book for a couple reasons. One, it's $23. So for less than the cost of what I shoot, just screwing around at the range, I can get a little bit of information. And that's pretty rare in a hardcover book that's directly relatable to what I do. And this one really works in terms of you can apply it to PRS if you want to, Palma shooting, F class, high power, anything like that. It's really a great book on wind. So it's not a how to shoot Palma or how to shoot F class or something like that. It really is more of a wind book, which I really like because wind is probably the hardest thing to learn. And I know guys have been doing this for 10, 20 years, and they're still learning about wind because wind is such a manipulative force when you're shooting. And it's the one thing that is never going to be the same exactly every single time. So this book breaks down things into what you would expect. You've got your wind basics, which they have some really nice pictures just showing, if you're not familiar, it's a really great way to get introduced to stuff. For somebody like me, obviously, I've been around wind flags. I understand how they move, probably more than average. And so in a book like this, what I'm looking for is, perspectives and ways to approach things that maybe I haven't heard before. And to me, that's what makes it worth $23. For somebody else, maybe they haven't really even tried reading wind. And so this is going to be a whole new introduction for them. For people like that, this book is fantastic because it really does a great job of showing you, some different charts in terms of what can you expect at different wind levels. Well, at a moderate 8 miles an hour, the flag is clear of the pole. It's, flying at a roughly 30-degree angle. And it kind of walks you through different things that we often talk about when we're doing a wind class or, hearing other shooters talk. It shows you what the wind flag looks like, talks about wind directions. It talks about wind values. It talks about things that you wouldn't necessarily expect. Like something that you don't hear a lot about is how does headwind and tailwind, fishtails, compare to a crosswind? What's more dangerous to shoot in? How do you adjust? Some really great stuff on that. And then once you get through the basics, then you get into, things that to me are more important. So thought process, how do you approach a match when it comes to wind? Well, they sort of walk you through it. How do you set up, what's your time limit? Is it a 22-minute? Is it 30-minute? What are you shooting for? Are you shooting steel? Are you shooting a target? Are you doing hold-offs? Are you dialing? All of that comes into play when you're observing conditions and trying to approach it. And then they kind of walk you through, there's a step 1, step 2, 3, 4, 5. And it's really a great way to sort of train your mind in terms of when I go to a match, what do I do? And I can tell you that, I've had a really great mentor who used to train for triathlons. And, you always hear about muscle memory, but mind memory is really the same thing. When you go to a match and your relay number and what target number you're on, do you spend every minute, talking to your buddies and, talking about the last match or talking about the last this or that? Or do you get up on the line? Do you pull out your spotting scope? Do you start reading mirage? Do you start looking for indicators, up on the hill, or brush, or flags? Do you start timing things? These are all things that you have to make part of your routine. This does a good job of laying it out. Then we have techniques, how to identify power flags, how to identify direction flags. What do they do for you? They call them velocity flags in here. We call them power flags where I shoot. But, how do you read upwind flags, downwind flags? It just covers so many different things that, maybe you've heard a lot of this before, maybe you haven't, but it really walks you through some great stuff. My favorite part of the book, however, is this chapter 5, which is words of wisdom. Now, I clipped it off just so I could show you, but we're talking 70 through, we're talking 25 pages, 28 pages of nothing but perspectives from what I would call, very top tier masterclass shooters. So these are people that have won countless awards, countless accolades, world championships, national championships, small bore, Palma, F-class, all of it. And what they do is they tell you what their approach to wind is. Now, this is unusual in that this isn't one author saying this is how you want to read wind. This is everybody telling you how they approach it. And in some cases, they actually contradict each other. And that's okay, because one person's approach to the wind may not match another person's, but you're going to identify as a shooter and how you see things. You're going to find somebody in here where you go, God, that sounds just like me. And that's somebody that I want to kind of emulate. I look for that flag, or that's how I read mirage. How does he do things? So, some of these people talk about using scorebooks. Other people don't. People talk about, looking at other spotters when they come up, markers, when their neighbors shoot. Other guys don't. Some people look for mirage. Some people prefer flags. Some people prefer, brush or dust or whatever it is. And they walk you through how they would approach a match, either before the match, during the match, how they sort of reconcile what happens after a match. But you've got 25 pages of countless shooters who are Hall of Fame members and national winners, and, people from Great Britain, people from Canada, US, overseas, all over the place, Australia, and all these different experiences, for me, really give you a different perspective. So you can read it and go, well, look, I know how to read wind. I don't need a book. Yeah, but how does somebody in Australia view it? How does somebody in Canada view it? What's different about their mental approach that might give you an edge the next time you're at a match? Some of these countries deal with weather conditions that are very different than what I deal with. But it's a condition I might see once a year or once every couple years. And so to kind of see how somebody approaches that sort of weather condition, could give me an edge in the future. And if nothing else, it's just really great reading. They do an appendix of all different tools. You've got wind charts. You have miles per hour along with what the mirage and the flags are going to look at. When do you stop reading mirage and really start influencing or when do the flags really start influencing you? You've got a bunch of charts. Now, admittedly, most of these charts are going to be geared towards Palma shooters or short range, which is going to be like 6BR. There's some 6.5 Lapua stuff in here. There isn't anything on like 284s or like 300 Wisdom or anything like that. But still, it's interesting to look at. Honestly, my least favorite part, though, because the bullet charts just don't match up to anything that I ever shoot. But, you've got stuff here which is going to be at different ranges. What's the effect of the wind on a given bullet, which is pretty interesting. And then, of course, you've got, just the biography, which if you want to look up some of these people, you can certainly do a lot more reading on the internet about them and what their accomplishments are. The bottom line is, I'm not saying it's going to change your life, but I'm saying for $23, it's pretty hard to beat. And I think it's a great read. Even if you only pull, a couple nuggets of wisdom out there, it certainly beats, blowing off another 25 or 30 rounds that would have cost you the same. And maybe you wouldn't have learned anything from it. So I'll put the link in the bottom if you guys want to check it out. And Hope you guys have fun. See ya.